What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Optimize You podcast, the place where we're optimizing everything, giving you value and providing so that you can live the best possible life for you. And today we are going over what is the best workout split for you and your goals. But before we dive into that, Alex, what's going on, my man?
What's up, dude? I am just chilling. Got groceries recently before this. I was kind of just busting around, and I think I've been talking on the pod a little bit. The last probably month, I've been doing grocery pickup, and so I'll do it. Just cost no extra. I just pick it up. Takes like 5 minutes instead of maybe a half hour or more to go through the store. And I mean, you sacrifice some of the just picking maybe the produce that you want or whatever, but it saves me some time, and wherever I can save time these days, I'm trying to do it to give myself that time back for other things. So it's good though. I'm doing good. We got beautiful weather down here. It's been like 75 and sunny the last week. It's just been perfect, man. So I cannot complain. I golfed a few times the last week. It's probably going to be the best time or the last time that I golf for maybe like a month or so. Got a pretty busy next month. I'm starting training for a new role at my company, and so it's going to be a crazy next month. Marissa and I are also going to San Diego here in 3 weeks, and dude, yeah, we're just busy. We're a busy guy, but it's a good busy. How are you doing, brother?
Cool. Good, man. And I think that the prep and the grocery shopping ahead of time is funny because I was just talking to a client, and that's one of the things I mentioned, even though I haven't done much of it. But after talking to you, I recommended it to him because I was like, depending on where you get it, it's usually at no extra cost. It's ready for you to go, especially if you're running around. This individual client happened to have multiple things. They have multiple kids. They have a ton of stuff going on. Their schedules, but I'm like, look, you can just cut 30, 40, maybe even an hour down and just turn it into 5 to 10 minutes to go pick up your items, and that's way faster. So I got that from you, and I recommended that to them, man. So very cool. I enjoy going to the grocery store personally because I like to get my steps in, and I like to walk up and down the aisles, and then also test the willpower and get some crap that I don't really need, but it finds its way into my cart. But I just enjoy the process, man. So I like doing it. But yeah, for this particular client, after you and I had talked or shot the pod the week before, I was like, that's a great idea. Like, people need to do that. And that works really well, man. But I'm good, dude. The weather here is not like where you're at. I would pray for that. I'm looking forward to those temperatures. We're consistently in the 30s and 40s right now. On a warm day, it's in the 50s. So 30s, 40s. Yesterday was kind of like that slushy snow / cold rain. Not enough to like stick on the ground, but my parents sent me videos of their house. They're at a little bit of elevation, like 30, 45 minutes away from me, and they're getting hit with snow pretty good. So that's just kind of how it is right now. No snow here though. I'm a little bit lower, but other than that, man, I'm looking forward to golf weather and fishing weather. And that should be hopefully not too far around the corner here. So that's what I'm looking forward to, man. But yeah, today let's dive in, man. Let's create a few different avatars here. I think would be the best idea. And what I mean by that is Alex and I'll go over a couple different scenarios and give you some different examples of, let's say the first example will be somebody that is coming fresh off the couch, or they have never experienced workouts consistently or at all, or very, very little, right? Very few. We can have that as one person. That'll be person A. Person B can be somebody who is, let's say they're a former athlete, or they were consistently working out. They don't necessarily have to be an athlete, but they had some consistency. They've just taken, let's say, the last 6 to 12 months off, and they're not quite sure where they should start. That'll be person B. And then person C can be somebody who is already working out. You're consistent with your workout. Maybe you're just so deep into your routine that you're having trouble making progress, or you feel like you're hitting some plateaus right now. And we can dive into that person as well and give our recommendations on how to kind of get out of those splits. But let's start with person one, man. Let's say the newbie, the person who doesn't have an experience, little to no experience at all. What would be your very first recommendations for that person getting into and trying to find a workout split?
Well, what do you think? I love the avatar idea, but what do you think about us just sharing what we're doing first?
Oh yeah, let's do
Kind of
that.
like our workout splits, and just
Let's do
maybe
that.
some of the different ones we've done in the past, and then going into the avatars at the end and
Okay, let's
kind
do
of
that
talking
first.
through those, kind of some examples. Because I mean, I think that's good for people to kind of see what we're doing and maybe some different things that we keep in the back pocket. Because I know for me, like I'm doing a certain thing, but I still keep other things in the back pocket for other, like I have weights around here behind me that I'll use in a weight bench. Like I can do a workout here. I'm actually going to do a workout from home today because I don't know, just been just going around doing shit. But my workout split right now is actually like kind of different for the last 3, 4, 5 months. I've been doing or actually maybe a little less than probably more like 3 months. I go legs and shoulders. I do chest and back, bis, tris, and abs, and then full body. So I'm doing like 4 days a week, and I'm doing just going between those, and then I'll do yoga on the off days. But what I do always love to keep around is like the bis and tris and abs. I'll do that a lot of times from home to save some time on that day, where I'll hit, I'll use my dumbbells, maybe some bands. I'll do like just a 5-10 minute ab video on YouTube or do some random ab exercises. But that's what I'm doing right now. And personally, in the past, I've done push pull legs. I've done 3 days a week full body. I did. Those are probably two of the other like big ones that I've done for large chunks of time. That that were 3-4 day a week programs. Like nothing crazy. I know like for a lot of people, and why I kind of wanted to talk about this first is that I know we run into a lot of people, probably plenty of listeners who believe that, oh, I have to do so much in the gym to get results. What I used to believe is that I had to do 5, 6, 7 days a week, right? I do two workouts a day at certain points. And like I always felt like if I skipped one day or more than one day, that it was like shit was all over. Like it was going to ruin my progress. Like I was going to lose 10 pounds of muscle overnight, right? Like I had these beliefs. And once I started actually tapering my exercise back a little bit and focusing more on like the quality of workouts and recovery, I started seeing a lot more. And so I would just challenge anybody out there, especially if you're new. I actually have a client who has taken some time away from the gym, and she has a really stressful job and has really had a tough time finding time for anything recently, right? I've been trying to just help her find like small little habits that she can do to help move herself forward. And she's like, I need to get I'm going to start getting to the gym. Gym is a huge thing. Like she's like, I'm going to go every day, right? I'm going to go to the gym every day. And I'm like, awesome. Like I love that approach, but like this is the stipulations I want to put in place for you. I want you to do it every other day, a workout and then a walk. Do switch off between workouts and walks, right? Like we can build up from there, but just start there. Don't give yourself a time frame, right? Don't have like, oh, it has to be 45 minutes. Just get to the gym. Make it your goal every day to get to the gym and do something, right? That's the win. The win is getting to the gym. You're going to do something while you're there, right? Whether it's a walk, it's a workout, whatever. And that's kind of like, and then just like kind of getting away from the perfection, like just trying to just focus on improvements, right? Improve, like I said, just these small little things that we can control. Because I think that's from me in the past. Like I've struggled with that, where it's like, oh, I'm like, what's the most drastic move I can do? Okay, I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm going to get a workout in, right? I'm going to get this 45 to an hour workout in. And if it's not that long, if it's a minute less, then it's a failure, right? Like it's like all these stipulations we put in place. Oh, I have to work out 7 days a week. It's these crazy things. And so like that's a long-winded thing. And I explained what I'm doing and also a client, but that's kind of the what I'm doing right now, but also how I would challenge people to look at it, because I know from me, I've always been like, go crazy, go way too insane.
I like that, man, because you even mentioned having a day or two in there of full body splits, which I think is great because that's exactly how I train. And I think when people start to get into this, they might hear full body splits and think it's just like strictly a newbie thing. But honestly, you can be super advanced and you can use full body splits to your advantage. The reason why I do it, so right now my schedule looks like, right now on paper it's 6 days a week, which sounds like a lot, but the way I break it down and streamline it allows me to be able to do that kind of volume. So, and of course I built it up over years. I didn't just jump to straight to 6 days. So you might be hearing 6 days and like think that's a lot or think that's necessary. It's not. I could definitely, the way I do it, I designed it so that I could train for 6 days. And for me, I feel better when I do. And so that's kind of why I've stuck with it. But yeah, full body splits for me too. And the way I design my cycle is I usually give myself an emphasis for the next 6 to 8 weeks in time frame. And the way I did that, and you're like, how do you do that if you're not focusing on one muscle group in a day? And so when Alex and I say full body splits, we're talking about you usually try to hit every muscle group or most muscle groups, multiple different muscle groups in the same workout session. So that's what we mean by full body split. We're not just doing like, you're not just going to go in there and just do biceps, right? So we try to do a little bit of everything. So for this cycle, the emphasis that I wanted to give was my legs. I wanted to build my lower half. And the reason for that is because I was coming off of a little bit of a back tweak. And so the amount of weight that I could put on something like a back squat was very limited as I was recovering. But now I'm on the way back up. So I was like, you know what? Now's a good time to build back up that leg strength. So not only am I going to have a squat session, today was squats, Sunday, but throughout the week, I want to sprinkle legs in at least another 3-4 times minimum. So in each session, I have some sort of legs. It could be just calves, but I want to have some sort of unilateral or single leg work in there. I want to have closed change exercises where both feet are planted on the floor, things like that, where I'm very well versed and balanced, and I spread it across an entire week versus like just doing squats on a Sunday. And then I don't do legs again until the following Sunday, right? So I like to sprinkle them out throughout the week, and the volume's lower. It's less, meaning the amount of legs that I'm doing per day. It's usually 1 to 2 different movements at the most. But that way I can touch legs multiple times throughout the week without getting excessively sore and without having to wait 5 to 6 days before doing them again. So that's what I prefer to do. And honestly, in this last cycle, I can already see my legs growing from it because I'm just touching legs multiple times throughout the week, even though they're different movement patterns. So hopefully that makes some sense. That's why I do it. And that's why I designed it to be that way, so that I can, coming off an injury, I can introduce myself to, without lifting super heavy, I could just do more legs consistently throughout the week, and that'll allow me to build the strength up. So that's what I'm doing. But a typical day would look like, today was a compound lift of squats, so it was very lower half heavy. And then I transitioned into, after that, doing things like working on the core, working on shoulder press, a push pull variation, and then finishing up with some accessory stuff like some shoulder bicep curl, just the fun stuff, right? Like the arm pump stuff. So, and I do something similar to that almost every day, but I try to change the movement patterns that I'm doing them in. So it gets me moving in different planes of motion. So it preps me for things just outside of the gym. So whether you're playing sports or you're just living life, you want to be able to move your body in different planes of motion. Actually, one of my days, Fridays, I just designate as a functional Friday. Yeah, functional fitness Friday is what I call it. And those are freestyle sessions, meaning I don't go in with a plan. Me and my buddy come in, we write on the whiteboard. He picks 3 to 4 movements. I pick 3 to 5 for 4 movements, and we do multiple rounds of them. And it has to be stuff that we're already not doing during the week. And so usually it's like your non-traditional stuff. Like it'll be like your carries or your holds or your balances, your plank type stuff, like anything that's non-traditional, that's not like a squat or a bench or a row. We'll do marches. Like if you guys have never seen those before, those are very glute, hamstring, hip dominant, like stuff that you would do that's going to really prep you for everyday life. And so that's why, yeah, like yes, on paper, it looks like 6 days, but that one functional fitness day plus the rest being full body splits allows me to be able to train like that. And so for me, I've had a lot of success with that. And I find consistency with it a lot more too, because it gives me something to look forward to. I'm not just like, oh man, today's legs, like today leg day sucks. Like, and then you dread going to the gym. It's like, well, yeah, you got some legs in there, but you also have some low hanging fruit of the fun stuff too. You got some arms, you got some biceps, you got some triceps in there. Like, so it gives you, some incentive to look forward to every single session, because you're going to get a little bit of everything. And it's no longer like, damn, I hate Wednesdays because Wednesdays are leg days, right? I think people get in that trap too a lot of times. And then they sometimes don't show up for that day, or they try to avoid it, or they half-ass it. And if you're in this game for the long run, like those things are really important. So you got to figure out things that almost manipulation of your training sessions that get you to show up. And if you can do that and those can be on your side, consistency is going to be way better.
For sure, dude. I love that. I think that's good. And yeah, man, I think like throughout my life, my training history, I'd say the full body stuff has been the stuff I've got the best growth from. Just because, like you said, you are hitting every muscle group more than once. a week. You're not just hitting a bicep and tricep day, which is cool. That's what I guess I do have that, but like it's just so much easier to see those results. Sorry, I'm just shaking Coco's kennel because she's starting to bark, and I don't want that shit. We don't got time for that shit. But no, but I think that's good, and we can go into the avatars here and talk about kind of that beginner. That beginner new to the gym, hasn't worked out, or if they have very small amount of workout experience in their life. What would you say is the first step, or maybe what you'd have this person do in the gym at the start, or would you even have them start in the gym? How would you kind of approach this?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to do, and this is right up my alley too, because I literally just had a buddy message me, and he's in this situation, he's in this scenario. He's more a former athlete, he's more of like Avatar B, but he hasn't done anything in a long time, so we can push him into the A category too. But his first question was like, should I do CrossFit? And I had coached CrossFit since like early, like 2011, 2012. So I've coached it for a long time, but I've also done traditional personal training too, and sports performance and kind of everything in between. And so Olympic lifting, powerlifting, all this stuff, right? And his question was like, should I do CrossFit? I have some family members that do it and they love it and they're super successful with it. And so I think the first question you have to ask yourself is, what is the outcome that you're trying to desire? Like, what's the goal? Like, what do you want to achieve? Is it that you want health and longevity? Is it that you like, you just strictly want it for looks? Like you just want to look better and you don't care about the other stuff? Like that's cool. Or do you want something that's going to be more of like, athletic based, like performance based, right? Like, so think about those things and what's most important. If you kind of want a hybrid of all of them, that will also kind of determine which avenue you go. So make sure you pick the vehicle that's best for you and your goals first, not just because your family's doing something or your friend's doing it and you think it's cool. Like you got to kind of be selfish with this portion of it. And if you figure out what it is that you want, it's so much easier to pick the vehicle. And that doesn't go to say like you got to just focus and narrow on one thing forever. Like you can always change, your goals might change and shift. But I think having that conversation with yourself of like, what is it that I want to achieve? Is it more aesthetics based, like looks? I care about that more. Do I just want health, longevity, and just have higher levels of energy? Or, do I want to it be performance based, like athletic based? And so let's just say somebody wants to be healthy, like general health. I think then the next part is picking the days per week. So how many days a week, and you and I have talked about this before, but like, let's just assume this person's going from 0. How many days a week are you willing to commit to for the rest of your life? That's a great lens to look through and a great way to start. So if it's like, oh, I want to be like Alex and Matt and go 4 to 6 days a week, and I've been doing 0, that's a recipe to set you up for failure immediately, like right away. Right. And so I always suggest have the lens of how many days am I willing to do, not just for the next 10 days, but for the next 10 years. Okay, I can commit to 2 days. I can commit to 3 days, like whatever that is for you. Maybe it's 1. Right? And like Alex talked about, is you have more of a challenge of just showing up. Like you just want to show up to the gym. Great. Let's just say you've established 2 to 3 and like you've committed to that. Then I think the next thing is, again, figuring out what it is that you truly want. Let's keep the general health thing at mind and keep it at the tip of the spear. From there, I'm a big fan of full body splits for somebody starting out brand new. I usually introduce them to some sort of compound lift, really fundamental basics. And I take people through, I have them send me over video and I walk them through form and technique and all that stuff, make sure they're performing it correctly. But then I just give them a lot of accessory work that'll help, with overall body functionality and strengthen your entire body. And we're going to do that multiple times a week. Because here's the thing, if you're only training 2 days a week and we designate one leg day or one lower body day and then one upper body day, it's like, well, that's cool, but you're only hitting upper body once every 6-7 days, right? We need a little bit more frequency than that. It's better than nothing, but to get more frequency, then let's just say somebody's 2 to 3 days a week. You're going to get the biggest bang for your buck by making those full body days. So a little bit of legs, a little bit of arms, and then you can go into core work, some accessory stuff. Like make sure you do a little bit of everything in your session, or it's at least included. And then that's where I would start. Like, so figure out those things first. What is it that you want? Like what's your true desire? how many days are you willing to commit to for the rest of your life, and then you can have some fun with the programming and splits and things like that. What about you, man? What are your recommendations, or what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that all of that is amazing, right? Yeah, if you don't know what you want, then it's kind of tough to develop a program around it, and be, be honest with yourself. We talk about this as well. What do you really like? What do you really want? Like, if just you don't have to want other people's wants. Like, you're not going to end up being successful that way. You're going to be a lot more consistent if you're actually going at a goal that's like really important to you. But I would just add, for anybody out there, like, it doesn't even necessarily mean that you have to go to the gym, right? Like, getting bands is an amazing way. Like, I have clients that just do band work, right? That's what they do. They just, you buy your $25 bands on Amazon, and they are perfect, and you can travel with them, and it's a lot. It's really good. If you have the means, getting a set of adjustable dumbbells can be a great way to set yourself up to do just tons and tons of different exercises. And so, like, there's a lot of different ways to go about this. I love that you said, the whole, commit to a number that you can commit to for life, and to really just, be real with yourself about what you can actually do, because that's the whole New Year's resolution thing, is that it's like, yeah, we're going to go 5 days a week. We haven't been doing anything for the last year, but we're going to do 5 days a week. And then you're not successful. And so it's just a matter of like easing your way in. You can always go up, but a lot of times if you go too crazy, you're going to end up like quitting, or you're going to get so sore, and it's just going to be a recipe for disaster. So that's kind of the big thing that I would say with this beginner, is to like start with like 2 days a week. Like, I think that's even like a good thing. Like you said, 2-3 days a week. Start a little bit lower than you think. Like, if you have a number, you're like, I want to do 3 days a week. Let's start with 2, and then we can build up to 3 as you are really consistent with 2 days a week, right? And maybe kind of like what I have one of my clients doing, just walking on those other days, and focusing on not necessarily like, oh, how many workouts I'm going to get a week, but just getting to the gym and making it a habit to get to the gym. It's like James Clear, Atomic Habits. He talks about that, like doing something for a minute, right? Just doing something for a minute. You could even make that your goal. I'm going to get to the gym for a minute. You're probably going to go for more than a minute once you get there, right? It's like anything. It's like a reading. Like I struggled for a while with a reading habit again, and now I just made it the goal to just try to read every day, right? Just read. And some days it's a minute, some days it's 5, some days it's 10. But once you do it and you read a page, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to read another page, and all of a sudden you read 10 pages, right? So that's kind of what happens. But I think that the hardest thing for people to do is to develop the habit of even just doing something. And you want to create this like crazy body or whatever, or you want to lose all this weight, instead of focusing on just creating the habit of showing up for yourself every day, and whatever that looks like to you. And so I love that. What was the second avatar?
The second one was like, let's say they're either athletic or they've had some workout experience before, and so this isn't their first introduction to, coming back to weightlifting. They just taken some time off. Let's just say it's 6 to 12 months minimum, and they're just trying to get back into the swing of things. That'll be Avatar 2. So if that's you, that's kind of where we're going to go now. What's your suggestion to those people, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's definitely a little bit different, but there's still a lot of similarities there, right? You don't want to go out of the gate and go crazy. That's the person that I was talking to as well, right? The New Year's resolution. You do see that a lot with like an athlete might be a person that's really going to go at that New Year's resolution. They've been struggling this year to stay on track and eat the right way and whatever. And then they're going to be perfect. They're going to be 100%. Like, they're doing the Whole30 and keto and whatever the fuck they got going on, and they're going to the gym 7 days a week, right? So I can see that. So I would say, the thing with those people is that they probably have an idea of like different exercises. They might just have the more of the unlock of, oh, I'm going to be able to do more advanced exercises out of the gate. But I would just recommend for these people, starting with maybe 3 days a week as well, like 2 to 3, kind of the same approach, building up. Maybe you do end up getting to 5 workouts a week a little bit quicker than somebody who's a beginner, right? If that's what your goal is, to eventually work up to 5 days a week. But I would just say to really meet yourself where you're at, and also just really start light for at least those first like 2-3 weeks. Like, really focus on form, nail down that form again, get comfortable with the the exercises that you're going to have in your program and the new things that maybe you haven't done in a while. And then from there, we can start building that weight up again to more of those numbers that you want to be at. And so that's kind of what I would say. I mean, I think that's like these first two are kind of similar in a lot of senses, but it's just a matter of like, this person is a lot, in my mind, this person's a lot more advanced just from the experience. It's like riding a bike, right? Even if you haven't ridden it for a while, or maybe like something like skiing, right? Oh, I haven't skied in 5 years. You still get out there and like you're a little maybe fuzzy on the first like 5 runs, but like after that, you're like, oh yeah, fuck, like I got this, and you're carving down the hill and you figure it out pretty quick. I kind of think of it like that, where it's like that first 2 to 4 weeks is maybe that period that's the first 5 runs on your hill that you haven't skied down in 5 to 10 years, right? But then it's like, oh, I got this. Like I've done this so much when I was younger that now I'm back, right? Now I'm back, baby, and I'm working those numbers up again. The form's in a good place and all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think this one, like you said, there's a lot of similarity and carryover from the first avatar we used. I think there's a fine line that has to be danced too, is because usually this person has more competitiveness to them. So it's almost like, from a coach's perspective, I know like I got to keep the reins on this person and be able to pull back a little bit, because generally speaking, with that competitive nature, they're going to want to do too much too soon, which equals either injury or burnout. And so that's more my concern with this person. And so if you are that avatar and you know you're competitive by nature, or one of my coaches used to say this quote all the time, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's along the lines of, your past successes do not dictate your future results. So whatever you crushed in the past and like you accomplished, like that's cool, that's great. And like Alex said, you will have muscle memory there. But if you immediately try to jump back into the weights that you were lifting before, or trying to match the accomplishments that you achieved once, but now you're 40 pounds heavier with more body fat and less muscle mass, and you're deconditioned, like you're going to end up hurting yourself and injuring yourself. So you have to be able to conquer that mindset and that mentality, making the transition into it. And like Alex said, you got to take that mindset of like, treat yourself almost as if you are coming straight off the couch, because technically you are, despite you having a more advanced and like higher skill previous history. Like, yes, all of that is true, but just make sure that you're coming off as like a newbie. You know, treat yourself like a newbie. And if you introduce yourself at that speed slower than you think, you'll know natural, you'll have a tendency to pick up after you get those first 5 runs on your skis. Like you'll get some momentum. You're like, okay, I got it. Like I got my bearings greased again. Like I'm ready to go. And that's the position you want to be in. Don't jump to the double black diamond, first run back out, because you're like, oh, that's what I used to do. It's like, well, you might be deconditioned now. You're showing up with a different body. You don't have the same skills and abilities quite yet. Like you need to build those back up. We know what you're capable of. So I think there's this very like fine line you have to dance with when you're somebody who's had previous experience and you have high skill, or you have an athletic background, is to kind of like keep the reins on yourself, be able to pull back a little bit, take the same mentality and mindset as like, how many sessions am I willing to commit to for the rest of my life, versus thinking, how many sessions was I doing last year at this time? Oh, I was doing 5. Okay, I should be able to do that now. It's like, no, that's the wrong approach. And so you're a different person now. You have a different body now. You have a different skill set, and maybe it needs to be sharpened and fine tuned. So like Alex said, is like form, fundamentals, go back to the basics. And then once you get your wind underneath your wings, you're like, okay, now I can start adding more weight. Now I created the consistency of showing up for myself again, because that's a huge trait that we carried over from the first avatar A, that's going to need to be present in B, because guess what? You haven't been showing up for yourself for the last 6-12 months, despite you having like this super high skill or this background. So yes, you're going to have to develop that skill again, because now it's been lost. So the skill of showing up will definitely be prevalent in this avatar as well. It's going to need to be practiced. Now let's just assume you got all those things. Like what does your program look like? If you started with 2 to 3 days, now you can start, and you've been consistent with that, 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks, and you're good, and you keep showing up for yourself, then you can start branching into the 3, 4, maybe 5 days based on your experience. You can add a little bit more there. And I would still suggest, excuse me, it depends on the person, but I would still suggest having some full body splits in there, at least 1 to 2 days, to touch the weights a little bit more frequently with multiple body parts. And then you could throw some isolation stuff in there as well. But it really comes down to a case by case basis. What about anything else to add to that, to Avatar B?
I don't think so. I think that's really good. And what do you think about this? Can I fire some questions at you for
Yeah,
like
yeah.
different?
Let's do it.
Let me fire some questions at you to end this. And I'm curious, like, so I'm sure that anybody out there is like, what scenarios would I use these different splits, right? So, like, we talked about kind of a full body split being a really good focus for somebody who's just starting out doing 2-3 days a week, right? That's a great thing. How about like I know so many people who do the bro split, right? I've done that in the past, like the just like bis and tris, chest on one day, shoulders on another day, legs on the other day, back, like just single body splits. Like where in your mind is that type of split make sense?
I think if you're trying to maximize the intensity and the effort that whether you're trying to build muscle or build strength, both of those, and you're trying to, you have to have a certain level of skill, I think, to be able to do it, because you need to be able to lift with a specific intensity. So, meaning like if you're pushing your sets to failure or close to failure, you need to have a specific training age, meaning experience that you've done that with. It's a different, I could say the same advice to somebody, but based on their skill level, they'll interpret it differently. If I say, hey, Jimmy, who's brand new, and I tell him to go to a set of 8, 1 to 2 reps from failure, and he's just now developing the motor pattern and lifting pattern, and he's getting used to the form and the fundamentals, and he's got a super light weight on the bar. Like, yes, he might tap out at that 8 and it's an empty barbell, versus somebody that has a super high skill who can lift 400, 500 pounds, and they're pushing that for 8 reps. Like, that's a totally different scenario. So I think it depends on the individual skill level. But I will say, if you're going to implement bro splits, it's usually because you're trying to create a ton of hypertrophy, right? So you really want to focus and pump as much blood into that muscle tissue as possible, which in turn is going to elicit growth. So if that's your goal, then the bro splits, which is why they're super popular in bodybuilding, right? Is because you're taxing that muscle with different exercises, but the same or similar muscle groups, to be able to pump as much blood and create as much tension as possible. And if that's the goal, then those single group bro splits are going to be great for you. If you're more performance based, that's going to be detrimental, because now you're going in, you're only focusing on one or a very small particular muscle group, and you're trying to train for performance and output. Maybe it's on the field or the court or whatever your sport is or activity, and you're going in and you're working one muscle group per day, right? Like, so that's not going to be it's not going to transfer as good or be as functional. So if that's you, then you'd probably want to stay away from those, or maybe include the bro splits on like 1 or 2 days of the week, right? Like very minimal, give yourself something to look forward to. Or at the end of your session, after you've prioritize other full, more like compound lifts. And then so I think where you would implement those would be like, if your sole goal is to focus on particular muscle groups. This is why it's also popular in bodybuilding, is because usually bodybuilders are like, I have areas of weakness. Maybe it's your shoulders, maybe it's your calves, maybe it's your back. Like, so now you can isolate those muscle groups and devote an entire session to them, or 90% of your session to focusing on that muscle group. And you could do that multiple times throughout the week. So of course, with rest separated in there. And that's another reason why too, is now instead of just taxing the muscle group, you're almost taking it to failure, so much to the point where you can expect to be sore for the next 2 to 3 days. So you have to take that time off. Whereas full body splits, you could train that same muscle group, but you're not doing it for a ton of different exercises. You're doing it for 1 or 2, which means that you could probably do it again the following day, because you're not going to be that sore, even if you pushed hard on those sets. Whereas like a bro split, your whole session is designated to back and bis or chest and tris or legs. So your ability to do those again the next day, it's not to say you can't do it, but you're not going to be able to maximize your recovery, because you're just going to keep tearing down your muscle, going into the next day. So it depends. That's where I would use those scenarios. If you're really trying to focus on certain areas to improve, or B, you like training that way, that's totally cool too. Or C, you're more of a hypertrophy bodybuilding, like you're trying to increase the size of the muscle. And that's how you're going to cater your training. So you're going to do more traditional, like bodybuilding style training. Those are different reasons or scenarios where I would have somebody implement hypertrophy too.
I love it, dude. And last one, we'll wrap it up here. Last one, very popular in the industry, and I love this split personally. Push pull legs. Where are we implementing that bad boy?
Yeah, I love that too. So this is agonist antagonist training, right? Think of it as like opposite muscle groups, things that complement each other. This is huge. I like to implement this kind of training with clients that have imbalances, or they have desk jobs where they're really hunched over, everything's in front of them. You see this a ton with guys who have just traditionally only done bro splits, right? Like they only focus on chest and triceps and abs and core, and they're strengthening all the musculature in front, which has them kind of this hunched over rounded posture. They might do a back day, but it's not as much focus. It's very common and very popular to have everything and all work, physical labor in front of us, but then also very traditional. If you're somebody who does the same workout all the time, like you're always doing chest, you're always doing triceps, you're always doing shoulders, like you're going to develop a certain posture. So I like the push pull is because it balances you out. So what we mean by that is by doing chest and triceps, say you're doing bench, a horizontal press, well, you can supplement that and do a horizontal pull as well. And you can strengthen the musculatures to help support your posture with, now, instead of just pressing everything out in front, you could do the opposite. You could do some rows, some horizontal inverted rows, some ring rows, feet elevated, things like that, some dumbbell bent over rows. Those things will help balance you out. And from a posture perspective, they're going to allow you to continuously train time and time again, versus you just always hammering one muscle group and it always being in the same plane of motion. You're going to create imbalances. So not only just your posture, but you're going to create imbalances from a strength perspective too. So you see a lot of strains and tweaks and pulls. So I think push pull is great for balance. It's going to keep you super well rounded. And I think push pull is great for most people. I think you can implement that if you're already doing like a full body split. That's a great way to program, is if you're not sure what to do, is like include push and pull. So meaning like if you're pushing vertical, try to do a vertical pull. So if you're pressing overhead, try to think about a vertical pull would be like chin ups or pull ups. And you could do those assisted or banded if you're not quite there yet from a skill perspective. And then like if you just think of opposite muscle groups, that's a great way to do it too. So if you're working your bicep, what's the opposite muscle group? Would be the tricep. Chest would be back, like things like that, quads, hamstrings. And if you get your mind thinking on those different muscle groups and going opposites, the less likelihood of you injuring yourself, creating postural imbalances, and then just being imbalanced from a strength perspective too. With my athletes, if we had I remember we were training and getting them ready for the combine. And if we had overdeveloped quads, a lot of times you see athletes pull their hamstrings. So it's like, okay, we need to, yes, this person is quad dominant. We need to do the flip side of that. We need to train glutes and hamstrings. We need to spend more time on the posterior chain to make sure we're balanced out. So it's one of those things where I think it's great for everybody to implement. It's not only if you have imbalances or you're prone to injuries a lot of times, but it's just a great way to implement, because I think you can put them in full body. I think you could put that kind of training in hypertrophy, and then it could be its standalone push pull splits as well. So I think it's super versatile, man. What about you?
I love it, dude. No, I think that's really good. And I would just say, another way to balance out too, on top of that, is you doing more unilateral work. So like just you see a lot of people that maybe like one side is stronger than the other. Also just more dumbbell work, generally gonna be harder. You're gonna have to use the stabilizers a lot more. And so like that's just, I guess, my 2 cents on that. But I think all that is amazing. And guys, that's great stuff to listen back to there on that, because I know that I'm sure people are constantly curious on like, oh, why would I do this? Why would I do that? And so hopefully at the end of this pod, you have a better idea of like, oh, should I do full body? Should I do bro split? Should I do push pull legs? Should I like incorporate these kind of exercises? And maybe now and hopefully you also have an idea of, if you're new, kind of the way to progress those things and make sure that you're not hurting yourself, making sure that you're going to be more consistent, because that's the key at the start, right? As we talked about it, consistency is what we're really trying to build right away. We're trying to build the habit of doing it before you really ramp things up. You want to build the habit. You also want to build the form up and make sure that you are good, because if you don't do that, if you go crazy out of the gate, and also if you don't focus on form right away, then you start to run the risk of getting a lot more injuries, and then you're not going to be able to do this shit anyway. And so like you want to be able to actually do it. But anything else to add here, Matt, before we close this pod out?
Oh man, I guess wherever you're at and you're in your journey alone and you're trying to figure out your workout splits, hopefully this was able to shed some light on that. Even if you are into your workout splits, but you have some friends or family that you feel like could benefit from this, always share it with them. We always encourage everybody to share this pod with somebody that you feel like could benefit from it and they could elevate and raise their value too as well. So that would be my only advice. But yeah, great stuff today, man. What else you got for us, man?
I got nothing, man. I appreciate everybody who watches and listens to this pod on a weekly basis. I can't believe we're over 100. We're into the 110s at this point in time. It's crazy to think like how many we've recorded at this point. It's so fun on a weekly basis. I know we've had a little bit more struggles, like just finding the times to do it, but we still make that time every week to do the pod. And you know what? Some days I might feel like a shell of myself, not going to lie. Today, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I'm doing my best, guys.
We're showing up.
Yeah, we're showing up. We're doing it. I zoned out a few times on this podcast, but we're doing it, baby. And we appreciate you all. Hope you have a good rest of the day, a good rest of the week. We'll be talking to you soon.
Peace.